Severance Season 2, Episode 1 showed that Mark S. is the true villain of the show. He's the true antagonist to his own happiness. And we'll explain to you why.
On this episode of Milchick Men, a podcast about Apple TV Plus's show Severance. This is Season 2. My name is Catfish, and with me as always is someone that I bullied into doing this podcast. It's Bubba.
Hey, Catfish, I'm so glad to talk to somebody who was recently let go from his job of night gardening. Everybody, we're talking about Season 2, Episode 1. Hello, Miss Cobel. Mark returns to work under different circumstances. Secrets from the Outie world come to light. Whew. Catfish, because this is brand new, we love to say, if you're new to our podcast audience, that who cares what we think, we want to know what you think. And we're going to start this episode not with what we thought of it, but what we like to call a double L.
Double L.
Loyal listener thought of it. This is Get Mic'd at Get Mic'd on YouTube and Blue Sky. Get Mic'd wrote, this first episode of Severance Season 2, I give 8 out of 10 double C's.
Double C's?
Queasy camera work.
Yes, I love what you did there, Mike.
Mike continues, the camera stuff at the start of the episode wasn't the most pleasant to sit through, but he loved the episode. He said it was a good choice not to have Outie stuff, and great to see the gang back together. Whew, well, that's what he thinks. We want to know what you think. Catfish, let's tell him what we think. What did you think of this first episode of Season 2?
Bubba, I gave this episode 9 out of 10, what I call triple Bs.
Triple Bs?
Yes, that is abandoned blue balloons. What a delicious beginning. This is so funny. There was so much going on last year, so much going on this year. I feel like we have barely, and I think, Bubba, this is what the kind of stuff that's going to drive you crazy. We have barely scratched the surface of catching up what's going on last year, and now we got a whole bunch of new stuff that we've got to puzzle and figure out. It is a delicious beginning. It is so funny. All last season, there was talk. Oh, no, you guys did a revolt. No, you guys did a revolt. There's a revolt. And now apparently all that we could talk about, apparently what these 4 guys did is now being called a revolt. There was a macro data refinement revolt. Things have changed. They're topsy-turvy and yet still strangely the same down in the severed department, Bubba. I love this episode. I'm just ready to be strung along. Every little bit of weirdness and odd humor is catnip for me. So, all right, let's hear it from you, Bubba. What did you give this episode?
Well, Catfish, you went 9 out of 10. That's impossible to top, but I did top it.
It's actually not. Okay, oh, you did.
I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'm giving this episode 10 double S's out of 10.
Double S's?
Yes, well, as you know, those are satisfied smiles. This episode provided characters, satisfied smiles. It provided me, a viewer, with satisfied smiles. My positive about this episode is it's been 3 years. I love this world. I love these characters. Yeah. I love to watch this show and get lots of laughs as well as lots of unsettling moments. It was perfect. It was just what we wanted. Now, what is interesting is that I think I gave it 10 out of 10 because I've been waiting 3 years to see this crew back together to find out what happened. If I'd been watching this as a binge where I finished Season 1 and went immediately to Season 2, it might have driven me crazy. The whole episode, there was an awesome end to Season 1, and this whole episode is nothing about, hey, let's reset everything back to status quo. It would have driven me straight to waffles. But you know what?
Bubba, you know what comes along with the waffles. It's a good old-fashioned severed freak-off. So, I mean, nothing wrong with the waffle party, baby.
But because it's been a 3-year wait, I didn't mind that things were set back to what a typical TV show would do. But this isn't a typical TV show. I loved it.
I love it, Bubba. Well, you know what? We made a mistake last year.
We did.
Or a couple years ago. We did not cover Season 1 of this amazing show. So, Bubba, let's just kind of do a quick catch our viewers up. It's been a while, our listeners, and let's catch each other up on kind of what our feelings were about season 1.
Well, Catfish, you and I did not podcast about season 1 all those years ago, but we would text back and forth and say, hey, are you watching Severance? Isn't this good? Isn't this great? Now, the one thing that I have to be completely honest and may make me a terrible podcast host for this is the way I watched season 1, in that I watched it the equivalent of what I would call a hot tub show.
Yes. A hot tub show.
Speaking of waffle parties, what I'm saying is that I get in a hot tub. While I'm in the hot tub, it's wonderful. When I'm out of the hot tub, I don't think of it ever again, right? Like you're like, oh, I'm going to go get in a hot tub. Ooh, I'm in the hot tub. It's fun. You get out, you never think about it again. And that is the way I watched season 1. I didn't read articles. I didn't listen to podcasts. I didn't go into crazy theory boards. I didn't think, ooh, what's Lumon's great secret? What is the company's great goal? I didn't think about that at all. If I did think about the show beyond enjoying each episode entirely, I would think, things kind of unrelated to the show. I'd think, why is Adam Scott continuing to dye his hair such a bizarre color? I'd think, who is this cute actress playing Helly? I'd think, man, that actor playing Dylan, I've seen him in a million things. What have I seen him in before? I really didn't think, any great why about why they're doing this, what's going on. Admittedly, that made the shocks even better. Maybe I should have recorded a reaction podcast, because each week I'd be like, wow. But again, once the hot tub was over, I didn't think about it. So in some ways, listeners, you're going to have to lead me into the theory section, theory thinking. And so I'm going to try. I've come up with some, including why I think Mark S. may be the true villain or antagonist of his own story.
Okay.
But that is my thought on season 1. What did you think, Catfish?
Well, Bubba, it's funny because when I was first bugging you to do this, I thought, I kept on pitching it. I said, this is great because Bubba is great at solving mysteries. But then I was watching this episode and I was like making notes and I'm breaking down the mysteries that were brought up last year, and then noted what small percentage of them actually got answered. And then they went ahead and generated some more mysteries in this episode. I thought to myself, Bubba might actually hate me for having him do this show because they don't really go in the mysteries. I'm going to cover it up. Okay, here are the mysteries that were solved last season. The Cobel came out of the closet, and the innies got to see a very small splash of their lives. That provided a lot of drama, especially in Helly's case, to move us forward. Now, the mystery set up for this season at the end of last season, the big sort of like our goal was set up Mark S.'s wife. We've got to save her. We've got to figure out what went on. So here are the mysteries still from last season.
All right.
What exactly are they doing in macrodata refinement? Okay. What are the goats for? What the heck is Lumon's big plan? Why would anyone, especially Mark's sensible sister, take Rick and Hale seriously?
He's a published author. Come on.
Okay, that was the one thing that bothered me about last season. I thought this is too part. I thought the guy did a great job, but I thought this part is too over the top to be believable. But it was so delicious when he became the Rick and Hale. Now, and the other thing was this is not a mystery, but it's one thing I can't figure out. Okay, sure, the innies have had sleep, but how could they not go crazy? They go to work all day, they get in the elevator. Then they're in the elevator and they go to work again. How does that not drive them crazy? And now here are the new mysteries set up to me in this episode.
Okay.
Why, except for Mark, do the Outies agree to let their innies go back? Mark has a purpose. I think the rest of them would be like, this is BS. I'm just going to stay out here. And why does Lumon allow them to go back after they caused all this trouble? So these are so many questions. For me, Bubba, I will take any little drip of thing. As you say, like, this show is so damn funny. It is just funny. I will go along for the ride. I have got a couple of what I like to call double S's.
Double S's?
Yes, severance suspicions that I will discuss as we go through the podcast. And again, they're not Severance spoilers because I got no idea. There's no book this is based on, Bubba.
Well, we don't have the answers. You may not like our ratings, but we say what we say doesn't matter. We want to hear from you. If you are if you're joining and becoming a Milchick man, please join us. on social media on all our sites at Double PHQ. That's the word double, the single letter P for podcast, HQ for headquarters, Twitter, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, Facebook. Reach out and tell us what you thought about this great show. If you're a Lumon lady and want to become a Milchick man, we accept all. Like Miss Huang, you can be a preteen all the way up to a complete teen. So we welcome all to the Milchick Men, and we want you to, answer our questions, answer our theories. We're going to throw out theories and ideas, but ours don't matter. We want to hear from you. You are the third member of this podcast, and thank you so much for joining us.
And we ask you, because you're part of this community, please share your theories. And this is what I would ask you to do. If you hear a theory, no, we don't want to hear somebody else's theory or a theory you read somewhere. I want you to sit and think, come up with your own theories. No theory, and this is going to be proved as we do this podcast, no theory is too stupid or ridiculous to be more stupid and ridiculous than my theories. So let's have them, but make them your own.
Heck yeah. Now, we always like to kind of wade into our podcast by asking kind of a question that the show makes you think. In this show, obviously, you have your mind split. You're not allowed to remember your work. You're not really allowed to remember your home life. So is there something you would like to forget this week, Catfish, based on this episode, season 2, episode 1?
Last year, we got a hint, a nugget, maybe it was wrong, maybe I just misinterpreted it, that some people don't just go severed for part of the day, but like the women would get pregnant and be severed for months and not know that she gave birth. So, Bubba, if it's possible to be severed for a longer period of time, give me about 3 years and 9 months, just until like let's say the beginning of November in 2027.
Well, what's going to happen is you're going to wake up in the 51st state of Greenland and be like, what happened?
Oh, that'll be nice. That'll be nice. Now, but I'll still be able to move to the 52nd state of Canada, right?
Right. You are going to, I'm going to be down on a houseboat on the Gulf of America.
All right, Bubba. So what I'd like to forget this week is the next 3 years and 9 months. What about you, Bubba?
I don't like admitting this. Since COVID, I go into a workplace and sit at a cube not so dissimilar from our friends at Lumon in the severed floor twice a week. And I would like to forget that. I'd like to forget the work I do. I'd like to not think about it on days off. And yesterday was a holiday here in the United States and I was still working. So sure, I'd like to forget my work and still get paid. And what's funny is I kind of do.
All right, Bubba. So that is what you would like to forget. Now, Bubba.
Yeah.
We have got another game here that I like to call the Double S.
Double S again?
Yes, the Severance Sillies.
Oh.
So for a serious show about some weird shit, this show loves to give us super dry laughs. And this is the space where we will celebrate them. I've got 4 options here, and Bubba's, if this is like every other podcast, Bubba's going to come up with his own that's going to be better than the 4 I noted. So the first is when Milchick is talking to Mark S. about Cobel, and he says, we believe she had an erotic fixation on you and had plans to pursue both you and your Outie in what might be termed a throuple.
Oh my God, so good. If you want to know why we are Milchick men, it's because only he could deliver such important information. Oh, so good, so good.
All right, and Mark W. asks Miss Wong, why are you a child? And she says, because of when I was born.
Honesty, love it.
Miss Wong comes over the top again when Mark, it's very funny, she asks him to say something about himself. This is something we saw a lot in last season, especially when someone went to therapy, tell you things about yourself. And they were, it's funny, we found out a few of them were sort of true, not fully true. Some were partially true. It was a little weird. And Mark doesn't want to do anything personal. So he says, I made 4 new friends today. And Miss Wong says, that's nice, but I have to remind you that I'm a supervisor, not a friend.
Oh, ice cold. She is the best. I tell you, if she did that in the crosswalk, it's no wonder she got this big job promotion.
Bubba, I think this one might be your favorite.
Let's hear it.
When Irv comes out of the elevator, he is super upset, and Dylan says, well, what's wrong? Are you poor up there?
Oh, welcome to America. I'm giving up to Miss Huang. I thought she was the greatest. She monitored those balloons. She did a great job. I'm for her.
All right, I've just got to give it along with the dry delivery and the fact that it just makes no sense when you think about it. The Cobel thruple with Innie Mark and Outie Mark. All right, Bubba. So now you've got. So you want to go through this question that you had before we go into the recap?
I do, because I think it's another question that hangs over the season and is so important to think about as a viewer, in that what exactly happened last week when suddenly innies were released in the outer world is it's not like the two people, the innie and the outie, were somehow combined. No, correct. It was just the innie was outside. And that was very important to think about. The example being the first one where Dylan's in his closet. He doesn't know anything about the outside world. Suddenly his child shows up and he's learning this. So it's not like his outer self, who knows he has a child and all this stuff. He is completely getting thrown for a loop. So if you think about the end of season 1, we know an awful lot, and we have ideas about how the innies learned and what they saw and how they reacted. But it's like the outies were turned off for a bit. So it would be very interesting to know, like, let's take Irving for an example. It's like he stopped existing because until whatever time, like they switched him off because his innie's still banging at the door of Britt, right? So you wonder if Outie Irving is suddenly wondering how he got from, I believe it was his apartment, to this stranger's front door. I mean, it has to be fascinating. I'd love to see that. Hopefully in episode 2, I do agree with some of our listeners that I think the Outie stuff isn't as fun to watch as the innie stuff, but I think it'll be interesting to see what the Outies learned, if anything, about their inner lives.
Yeah, and also I feel like I feel like they're going to kind of hold the Outies away from us for a few episodes, just because it would seem inescapable that we'll learn more about what the real effect was on the world when this happened. I mean, for now, all we have is, a heavily redacted newspaper and a video with an audio by Keanu Reeves to really say that anything different has happened.
So exciting. All right, Catfish, we have held off long enough. Let's dive into this episode entitled Hello, Miss Cobel.
All right, so we start with Mark. Boom, as we do all the time, Mark comes out of the elevator, and this is where the queasiness with a capital C started. He is running all over the place. Bubba, to be honest with you and our listeners, it wasn't until later when he said he was trying to find wellness and it wasn't there that I figured out what the heck he was doing. I'm like, where is he going? I don't know why he's running around so crazy. That's what he's trying to do. He's trying to find wellness. Wellness is not there. He stops in a room. Wellness is no longer there. And we see somebody in the deep background kind of lean over a little bit. Then Mark's like, well, all right, heck, I'm going over to microdata refinement.
Yeah, so let's pause and just talk about what we would consider the lead character here, Mark S. What is his inner trauma? What is the thing he's trying to recover from and possibly grow past? Well, it's a couple. The most recent one is seeing Miss Cobel at his house, seeing his dead wife in a wedding photo. What I wonder, and again, I had no thoughts on theories at all, but we always hear that his wife died. His wife died, right? What did we also hear in season 1? When Britt was retiring, Irving was saying, you're celebrating this man's death. And so there's a part of me that wonders if Mark's wife, maybe she was in a car crash, maybe she wasn't, but if she was in a car crash, maybe that killed one of her severed selves and the other one's still alive somehow. So very interesting, very
Okay, well, no, I got to
very
stop you
bizarre.
right there because now you've completely confused me. It is
All
the
right.
same body, but just they do something to the brain.
True, but did Irving not say Bert was going to die at his retirement party again?
Right, because all we are is our ego and ourself. And
Yeah.
so once that severed person, once you never go back to that severed person, you are killing the ego. That person who has that memories and that sense of self is completely gone. So the death of the body doesn't matter. It's the death of the soul, really.
Well,
And
yeah, what I'm saying is what if her body didn't die, but it was
right.
what if she had been severed, she's in a
Yeah.
car crash, but
Yeah.
somehow
Yeah.
that body goes away. So
Yeah, it is interesting because that was the first sense, and I'm starting to experience. I got clues later on in the season. I mean, again, at kind of the beginning, and I believe they were trying to lead me to this, that I thought everybody on that floor was severed. I thought Milchick was severed. I
right.
thought Cobel was
Yeah.
severed. And so then you start to get the idea, okay, some people aren't severed, but then you also get the sense that, and I think we even got it before we found out that it was his wife, that like when they sent Ms. Casey in the back, that it's like some people are stuck in their severed selves. We've got people who go both ways, people who don't go either way, and then we've got people who just are over here. And I believe that's what's happening with Mark's wife. I don't know if they're keeping her in a broom closet or what they're doing with her. All right, so we've got Eddie Marquez. He sees his replacement fellow workers, people we are for sure going to see again.
I hope so.
Because
I
these
hope so.
people, I don't think would show up for just one episode. There's another Mark played by Bob Balaban. I love it. He's like, but this guy's only been here for a day. He's like, are you be willing to change your name? Change your first name?
Hold on, Catfish.
Yeah.
This is revealing. You and I have both very common first names. Certainly, you've been in a class where you're like your first name initial. I have multiple times. Like literally,
Yeah.
I've had my first name and somebody with the exact same initial. And so you're like, well, how are we going to differentiate each other in class? And so in a couple of classes, I did go by my middle name so that, me and the other John wouldn't get confused when the teacher would call on us.
Well, the funny thing here, though, is that they go by the last initial a lot in this show. Obviously, when they're talking to each other, but there's a lot of there's a lot of use of your second letter. So it seems more funny here, just because it's all Mark S, Mark W, da 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 da.
Do you have a favorite of these newbies, these three newbies?
It's got to be Balaban, because he's just Mark W. He is such a whiner. He's talking about how he didn't like the carpets. He likes the green carpets because they were creme brulee carpets, and the keyboards were not pink, they were puce, because puce makes him sick. So he is the funniest one to me. Also, it's just amazing when I don't want to jump too much, but when when Mark S tries to plant that note on Mark W, Mark
So
W's
good.
outrage. All right, so
good.
Milchick comes in. Now he's got balloons that have Mark's face on them. That is so great. He takes Mark's to his office, which is Cobel's old office. And we see Milchick's assistant. We find out later, senior deputy, whatever, is indeed a young girl, like an 8-year-old girl. So Milchick shows him a heavily redacted newspaper, and he says that the group is now the face of severance reform.
But and it was a Kier newspaper, meaning it's pretty much just a Lumon newspaper too. So good.
While he said this is the tone of the video too. It's really just like, yes, mistakes were made, but you were just bad people, because he says, you know what? Yes, you did mutiny, but he sort of apologizes for locking them in like animals. Now, this is the one thing I don't understand. I thought right here, he says there's been a 5-month time lapse since last season, and
Yep.
yet Milchick is still moving to his office. The people, the three new workers said that we've only been here for a day.
Yep.
So I kind of don't understand, like, was there just a complete shutdown of the severed floor for 5 months?
No.
I feel like that's a mystery, or I'm missing something.
What do you guys think? Do you think there's more to this? I mean, we certainly saw Irving's any self snapped immediately back to outside Bert's house in the elevator. So could he have been an Outie for 5 months? This is fascinating. Let's talk about our hero, our namesake, the only truly innocent person in this world, and that's Milchick.
The man can dance.
He's a great dancer. He celebrates. He cares people, but he's got some emotional dilemmas too. Number one, the corporation, which he's giving so much of himself to, the corporation doesn't think enough of him to update his desktop's welcome screen to his name. It still says Miss Cobel. Oh, that is brutal. The innies don't want to, his employees don't want to do any work. They always just want to ask questions and not focus on the important work at hand. That's tough. If you've ever been a manager, you know how tough employees are. He didn't seem to get any appreciation for those balloons. You think those are easy to inflate? Helium is tough here in the United States. And then, people call him Milkshake instead of pronouncing his last name. And probably the worst, he was called Shambolic Rube. He is not shambolic at all. How dare you, evil Mark S. That's what I say.
If he didn't have that perfect tone of, it feels like 53% aggressive and 47% passive. If it was more 50-50, I think he would have gone more towards aggressive, but I think he's maintaining the perfect 53 to 47 ratio.
Exactly right. He should give a TED talk to Ted and others about what they should be doing. I love it.
So when we go back to, then we follow, after Mark gets all his questions answered, he goes back to his data refinement office, and we find out that these people are from different, actually, data refinement offices. The office, they say the office is cramped, which is hilarious because, the desks are shoved together, but this is a big room. And there is so much going on here, Bubba.
Yes.
First of all, some of them are from, better offices where the Kiers were actually animatronic. The guy who doesn't speak much English.
Poor Dario. Yeah.
Their Kier was a bucket and a plate.
Brutal.
So it's fascinating. And we do find out later, you can save it for the video, but we do find out later in what I feel was a jaw-dropping for me reveal.
Let's hear it.
That there are 280 Lumon offices around the world.
Love it.
Holy
cow,
Bubba. Holy cow.
Can I throw out some double S? I want to throw out some double S. Yeah, some silo speculation, severance speculation. My severance speculation is that Gwendolyn Y. She was often asking questions to Mark about what Mark saw outside. Part of me wonders if she's there from Lumon, trying to get Mark to give up the ghost of exactly what he saw.
All right. Well, that's fascinating. I'm gonna pitch someone else as a spy.
Ooh, let's hear it.
And then later on, when do we get to him? But also, just as a reminder, Dylan later on is also trying to get roped in as a spy. So I don't know how many people are actually faithful on this show. And our next person, Bubba, is your new favorite. Correct. It's being mentored by Milchick. It is Deputy Manager Miss Wong.
People do not respect her due to her youth. A lot of people in the workplace have experienced this before on both sides. It's very weird to be the young, fresh face at the office. Everybody thinks you're too young and expects you to do menial tasks. Also, it's very weird if suddenly you have to report to somebody who's noticeably younger than you. And I think everybody will experience that as they get older. And it's an odd thing, I think.
Well, I feel like she is preternaturally calm.
Oh,
so
good.
I do have a severance suspicion about her.
Ooh.
And that is that, like Mark S.'s wife, she is a severed always any.
Oh,
That's
no.
my suspicion about her. I know she does say that she used to be a crosswalk monitor, but I do believe, I don't know it's from birth or recently, but I believe that she is an always severed innie.
Perfect character.
Now what's great about her is just she knows, she's like, the way you got to start things with a new group is you got to do the improv, the ball game, the stick game, the whatever, roll it. She says again that she's a crossing guard. Our Mark doesn't want to share any more info, so he says about the new friends. But then after this really warm and wonderful game that brings everybody together, he finds out that the other Mark's team never made quota, which is amazing to me because it really feels like they were putting pressure on people. So if they are actually doing something with these numbers, then why did they keep that guy around? And if they aren't doing anything with these numbers at all, this is just one big mind F, which is, I think, probably what most people assume, that the numbers aren't scary.
But what if it's, let's see how this group of severed people deal with positive reinforcement. Hey, you're making quota, you're doing good. And how, this other test subject group of severed people do with, never being able to meet the goal. I think it makes perfect sense. And actually, I'll try it out with my employees later.
Well, yes. But the question is are they really achieving a goal? Or again, is that the positive and negative reinforcement has nothing to do with what they're actually doing. They just don't reach the goal. Do you know what I mean? There's a difference between, like, we're going to give negative reinforcement and see if these people really don't do it, and positive and see if these people can really do it. There's a difference between that and we're just making up whether they're actually doing it or not, whether they're successful.
You say that, but like my mom did this test by only giving me negative reinforcement my whole life.
All right. Now that explains a lot. This is where we get some excitement in the episode. Because when Mark S. plants that note in Mark W.'s jacket, shambolic Rube Milchick does not fall for it.
Thank goodness,
he strips Mark of his department head status. And Mark, he says, oh, well, then you probably didn't see what I did in the kitchen area. So they run to the kitchen area, and then he runs to speak to the board that we've never heard, the crackle. He's talking on the old intercom system.
Love it.
And Milchick takes him away, sends him up in the elevator. Seems like he's fired, but then he's back. He is back. And Bubba, when he comes out, I thought, is he in a different place? Because I never recognized that picture on the wall. Yeah. When the elevator door opens, luckily, when one of our other friends comes down, they mention the title of the painting, which is Keir Pardons His Betrayers.
So you bury your betrayers up to their necks in the dirt, and then you hold a sword to where if they don't say the right thing, you can easily crop some heads there. Love that. Need that artwork in my house. Love it.
Listen,
beautiful.
Pardon means different things to different people. All right, so our people come back quick, one by one, but very quickly hard upon. Bubba, what do you want to say about our innie, who, if it weren't for Milchick, this guy would for sure be your favorite. He's always looking out for number one and in number two and number three, but number two and number three also happen to be number one. That is Dylan.
Dylan is so fascinating because he's obviously been severed long enough that he doesn't know about his kids. Whoa, he really took pride in his work, which he doesn't even understand what it does. And as you mentioned, his new, what you would call inner turmoil, his turmoil for this season is going to be, do you go with your corporate overlord boss who's going to give you an Outie family visitation suite where you be able to see your wife and kids, but then possibly that means betraying your teammates.
It's also, in a way, as we've said, that, Helly says it a few times later on, and we'll get into it, that innie Dylan is not the Outie Dylan. So the question is, would his wife be like, okay, you're the same person? So would his wife be cheating on another person? Or would Dylan's innie be cucking Dylan's outie?
This is why they invented the word throuple, but listeners, you dive into that thing. How about Irving? Let's get to his turmoil for the season, and it continues from last year. He's in love with a person who may not exist anymore, meaning any Bert. If any Bert doesn't exist anymore, how can you be in love with somebody who doesn't know you exist and they're no longer alive? I mean, yes, obviously my love for the Queen is like that, but still, it's heartbreaking. So why in the world, and we will get to it at the end too, but
yeah,
why would he return to his job? That is horrific to me that he returned. It's great to see our old friends, but all of our old friends showing up back at Lumon made me feel terrible at the same time. Like, no, you shouldn't be here.
Yeah, it is. I mean, this is the question I have for everybody, but I have the question for both Irving and Dylan, why they returned. But yes, Irving is the one who is the most just bereft. I don't have a life in here anymore. And he really has to be convinced. Now, before that happens, though, Mark explains to him they're sort of famous. And that's when they get to go see the video. Now, I have the note here. I was wrong about the number of countries. It's 206 countries, so I apologize. And the video is delicious. It has that, it's got that perfect Milchick tone. It's apologetic, but also threatening and very personally intrusive. I mean, when they have the hair goes on fire, there's the yelling, and then there's the making out. But Bubba, Lumon always comes up with the best perks. The new perks include pineapple bobbing, which sounds painful to me, and the new mirror room, which seems like it will be completely terrifying, Bubba.
Sometimes comedy is hard to discuss because really, if you explain it, it's not funny. And so I don't want to go too deep into it, but that video was perfect. It was perfect. It was exactly what we want out of this show. They could give us a video like that as an entire episode, and I believe we would eat it up. So damn great, man.
The tone of it is so good. You're like, stop running in my halls. It tickles me.
Now, Helly and Mark S.'s kiss, that is a huge HR no-no, I would assume, even for Lumon. Who's to say? Don't you think that's an HR no-no? But the fact that they're almost celebrating it in the video, Dylan said, hey, but do you think that's going to come up later? He's not going to leave this, alone. He's going to bring that up again. Whoa.
He won't. And I feel like it really did a pretty good job of shaming them. It always had Dylan. Whenever they talked about eating, it was Dylan. And I'm kind of surprised they didn't go after Irv. He feels like that's the only person they really didn't try to just yeah, great. Yes. What did you guys did such a great job. And look at how we just portray you as just horrible human beings.
Love it. So good. Now, they do get to talk about, they do have a moment where they believe they're not being listened to, and they talk about their outside world experiences. Mark seemingly has the most to share, and what's interesting is he doesn't hold back certain things. Certainly his innie knows he kissed. I mean, he was just reminded if he somehow forgot that he kissed Helly, yet he's real quick to talk about his wife and his wife being one of their possible coworkers. Whoa.
Well, Bubba, I got to say this, though. I just want you to imagine if you were any of those three people and somebody came back and said, first of all, I know this guy who we all think is amazing.
Yeah.
And number two, my wife was our therapist. I don't know. I know I kind of trust these people, but that's really a lot of information.
Right.
I mean,
that
the
is
only
less,
person who would
that's less believable than a night gardener.
Yeah. The only person you would expect to big up themselves like that would be our boy Dylan G. But now what's interesting is, Helly doesn't share her info, the whole night gardener thing. Irv, this is the point where he's bummed. He said it's not our world up there.
Oh, poor Irv.
And now we got Helly and Mark walking by themselves. And Mark says his plan is get his Outie's wife out of there. And Helly seems to be all in. She's like, screw our Outies. They're horrible people. So, Bubba, what do you now? Here we are at Helly. Tell me about what your feelings are about Helly.
Well, I think first and foremost, before we even get into Helly, we have to talk about the theory that has taken over Lumon fans around the world. Okay. And that is that Helly that we saw in episode 1 is not Helly, but Helena Egan. And that somehow...
Okay, Bubba, I have to tell you, I have not seen that.
Wow.
But that's what I believe. Yeah, no, what I'm telling you is I haven't seen any theories about that, but I believe that she is the Outie pretending to be an innie. And this is what I said I wanted to hold back till later, because now it seems like we've got so many moles in here. And I'll tell you why. Okay, why? Because for whatever reasons the other Outies might have to come back as innies, she has no reason to come back as an innie. Why would her outside person let her inside? Her outside person who presumably caused her so much trouble. Her outside person who knows that her inside person has tried to kill herself twice and caused so much damage to herself twice and just hurt the company. She just hurt the company at the final episode of season 2. She is the one who spread the word. If any word has actually been spread, she is the one who spread the word. I cannot believe that she would allow herself to go back as an innie. And also, here's the question: would Helly, innie Helly, would she agree to help Mark find his wife? She's just kissed this guy. By being severed, Mark is the only man she really knows that she has any, interest in. Would she suddenly say, yeah, I'll help you find your wife? Very suspicious. Now, we should point out that the show creator said that Helly lied because she's rattled by what she saw on the outside and essentially ashamed to be connected with her Outie, Helena. Now, Bubba, I was stunned when I read this, and then I saw a headline on AV Club where they had an interview, and I saw that the creator kind of like hedged their bets and said something like could or one of the reasons da-da-da. I feel like I'm trying to be thrown off the trail here. And I would love a listener to explain to me under what circumstances Outie Helena would allow any to go back after all the trouble caused. Let me ask you this, and this is another one really for you listeners. We are Milchick men, so we really only care about him and his feelings. But there are certain fans who love ships. And I think Mark S. and innie Helly's ship and their kiss at the end of episode, I think it was episode 8 of season 1, or, in the middle of episode 8 of season 1, that meant a lot to people. Do you think people are going to be heartbroken, those shippers, to find Mark betrayed by Helena? But, of course, Mark's betraying innie Helly by trying to save his wife. This is so bizarre. Do you have any ship feels, Catfish? Any ship feels? I like these two crazy kids together. I mean, I think Helena / Helly, she has proved why she deserves to run a company, because she is sharp. Yes. Whether she's her Outie or whether she's her innie. She's putting it all together. Mark is the one it's hard to believe he's putting everything together, since he's such a shiftless bum on the outside. But Helly's got it going outside and inside. Now, Bubba, another great thing that happens, and you may have missed it. Who knows if you hadn't seen this show in a while, but I just saw it a few weeks ago. Irv wants to leave. Dylan stops him. And Dylan's like, Irv's like, I just love Bert so much. And Dylan says, yes, that's why I encouraged your courtship. Dylan was talking trash about Bert and his department at every step. You can't trust those people. Just amazing. Dylan, you know what? His arms are so well stretched from constantly patting himself on the back and big up on himself. All right, so when Dylan goes to Milchick's office, we see Milchick is still bummed about his computer. He spells his name. He's like, my name is M-R. And he's spelling the Mr. Now, Dylan wants his apology for Milchick messing up his belt. But Milchick is trying to get him as a spy by showing him plans for a secret family visitation room planning. Don't tell the others. Dylan's response when he looks at it, he says, holy and Milchick says, the holiest.
It's so good.
So you know what Dylan's thinking about? I get to work in MDR and still get some with my lady. And as Dylan leaves, it's interesting. I watched a couple of times. Looks like Miss Huang is doing, it's not the same kind of data refinement that they do in macro data refinement, but it's some sort of similar looking thing. But when Milchick goes back in the room, she plays one of those water games where you press the button and try to get a hoop around something. Bubba, this damn Generation Alpha, you can't trust them whether they're innies or outies.
So that is the end of the episode. Our heroes are back at work, but somehow it maybe implies that data refinement, specifically Mark S's data refinement, might somehow be tied to his dead wife. Wow. Incredible. I went 10 out of 10. This is, it's all downhill from here.
Bubba, I am all in. I am loving this show. I want to give it room to go to that 10. But you know what? These people are living their best lives, and I'm talking about Milchick and Dylan, and now Miss Wong. Just being their best selves and just crushing suckers. And that's what we are all about here at Double P Media. So, Bubba, wait, we're going to get to the biggest. This is the biggest thing now. I mentioned all my severance suspicions. I asked my dumb questions. So, Bubba, this is the biggie here.
Yeah.
You started off this podcast promising that you were going to tell the listeners why Mark S. is the true villain of the show. Bubba, you're going to have to sell me well on this one.
What did we see Mark S. do in this episode? He keeps telling Milchick, our hero, that he wants to hear from his friends, from his team. I want to hear them say.
Very insistently. Very
right. And they're not there. They've been replaced. Suddenly, Mark goes into the elevator. The elevator opens back up when it's a new day. And all those three teammates are back. There is a part of me that fears that they are back because Mark needed them back. And Mark did something to force them back, or Lumon forced them back because of Mark. And so Mark, I say villain of the show. Really, I say he's an antagonist to his own happiness, in that Mark couldn't be happy by these people escaping and living their lives out of Lumon. And so there's a part of me that thinks, is this what the whole show is? Mark is doing something to get in the way of his own happiness? In a lot of ways, doesn't it feel like the inciting incident of, hey, I'm being severed because I can't think about my wife? Isn't that a similar way that he's sabotaged his own happiness? And it feels like, even though he has, people he's going to push a bit against in the corporate world, I think Mark he's really got to get out of his own way, and he probably never will. I think he is the villain. And if I find out that Dylan and Irv, and in some ways even Helly, are back in this hell because of Mark S., I'm going to hate him more than I already do. And you're like, how in the world could you already hate Mark S.? This is somebody who is given 12 balloons, a dozen balloons from somebody who really cared, from his boss. When your boss goes out of their way to give you a present and you don't respect it and you just dump it in the friggin' hall, leaving a fire hazard for people trying to escape a possible deadly fire. Mark S., I say S.U., the worst villain on the show.
Well, Bubba, you have got a point. The whatever power dynamic there was last year seems to have completely flipped. and that Mark S. is getting everything he wants.
Yes.
But you know what also he's done through his insistence of those people being there is that he has saved 3 souls that were condemned to nothingness.
What?
I agree with you. They're only back because he said they had to be back, and therefore there are 3 souls that are back in the world that would have been extinguished. Mark S., lifesaver and hero.
There's only one person who can solve this ultimate question of hero or villain, and that's you, listeners, by reaching out. If you're watching this on YouTube, go down in the comments and tell Catfish he's wrong. Or say, hey, let's say you're listening to the audio podcast available on Spotify, Apple iTunes, all your favorite places to download audio podcasts. Reach out on social media and tell Catfish he's wrong. At Double PHQ. We want to know what you think. Is Mark S. the person who's in his own way, or is Mark S. just saved people who were doomed to, souls that were ids that were never going to be in the world again? Fascinating, possibly not fascinating. Let us know.
All right, Bubba, we got one bit of feedback, but it's really just, this is meta feedback because someone was listening to our Silo pod and said, Gen X Cat Mom said, I'm 15 minutes into your Silo finale pod and have to pause it immediately to let you know how thrilled and happy I am that you'll cover Severance, and then lots of emojis. So Gen X Cat Mom, let us know now that you've heard it. Are you still happy?
Right. She wants to be severed from this podcast. Thank you so much. Hey, Catfish, hold on. We actually have another bit of feedback. And
what?
It's from our good, loyal listener, Link Hogthrob on Blue Sky.
Love it. Let's hear it.
This is what Link thought of the first episode of Season 2. Link wrote, great opening sequence. He loved the line, why are you so young? And then Link pointed out something that really we should have pointed out. He said, Milchick's milkshake brings all the boys to the yard. He said, claymation rocks. Need some Mr. Heat Miser in this, though.
Yes.
Can a building be sired? That's his question. Based on that little thing, do you think a building can be sired? What do you think there?
I mean, I don't know what kind of witchcraft the Kiers are up to. It certainly could be an option.
Now, he also said Kier has a small ego problem. Thank Kier. GTFOH. I was going to say GTKO. Get the Kier out, man.
Listen, they started in a shack. Now they're in 206 countries, and they're taking over people's personalities. I think the ego is right in line.
Link continues. He says, Helly's a liar. Do you consider her a liar, Catfish? What do you think about that? Is it lying? Is it, I mean, she is lying. Okay. So, but is it truly as Helena evil lie, like we talked about, or a Helly innocent lie? Ashamed lie?
No, she's Helena. I mean, I could see if she was Helly that she might be a little embarrassed, but I think it would help her cred, wouldn't it? They'd all be like, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And then the final thing our good buddy Matt, Link Hogthrob, writes is, free Miss Casey.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you want Miss Casey free? Or do you think to yourself, Mark, Helly's right there. Just move on.
I mean, listen, Cobel had the right idea.
Oh.
Helly, Miss Casey,
here we go.
Mark S. Thruple. All right. Well, I am Catfish. You can hit me up on Instagram and Blue Sky at G to the man. That is GETOTHEMAN.
My name is Bubba. You can find me on all social media at Fitten Trim. That's FITTENTRIM at Fitten Trim on social media.
And you can hit up our Double P is also on social media. That's the word double, the letter P, and then the word media. You can find us on all socials. And if you want to email us, you can email us at hello@doublepmedia.com. And we will talk to you next week on
Milchick
Man.